Hey, welcome back to the Corporate Finance Academy. Today we're going to talk about Finance Leadership Development Programs, or FLDP programs. So we will cover what exactly is FLDP, what's the work content like, how do these companies think about development, the environment, the working environment that you're in, and then we'll touch on top programs and some of the pros and cons of actually doing one of these. All right, so FLDP, what is it? It is the Financial Leadership Development Program. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I actually did one of these programs 17 or 18 years ago. I started in one of these programs and I had a really good experience. Now, it wasn't perfect, but I learned a lot and it set me up really well for my career. I also met people that were great and I ended up being lifelong friends with. And the other folks on my program had a significant amount of success in their careers as well. Let's get into it. Who has these programs? Now, it's typically large companies just because smaller companies don't really have the need for as many employees. So it's going to happen mostly at larger companies, but it really ranges throughout. So Amazon, Dell, Nielsen, IBM. In the tech space, you've got Citibank, Fifth Third, Genworth, Credit Suisse, HSBC. Many of these have these leadership development programs. And then you get into the industrial companies like GE and Siemens, Johnson & Johnson, Boeing, Ford, and healthcare companies. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are literally probably more than 100 of these different programs out there. And what is it? It's a rotational program. So what you do is you enter these programs for, usually it's 2 to 3 years. And in that 2 to 3 years, you're going to rotate into a new job every maybe 6, 9, 12 months, depending on the program. And you're going to get all different experiences in different areas of finance and sometimes accounting. And as you do those jobs, you'll rotate around. And this is the intent here is to train you, to teach you all about the world of corporate finance. And throughout it, in many of these programs, there is also a development aspect where they're looking to train you, teach you, and really create future leaders for the company. They want to develop you. They want you to have success within the company. And lastly, everybody likes to talk about compensation. And before I talk compensation, I'll tell you, all of these things we talk about, it's the old, your market may vary. Depending on the company you work in, the industry you work in, how long the company's had an FLDP program, your experience is going to vary. When you talk about compensation, in some of the tech companies like Amazon, for instance, these compensation packages for entry-level employees can reach all the way up to around $100,000 a year. Now that includes equity. And there aren't too many of these entry-level programs that actually give you equity, but you can find them in high cost of living areas reaching all the way up into that six-figure range. But typically you're going to see a starting range in the 60 to 80 or 85,000 range, and that's usually going to come in the form of base salary plus a little bit of bonus. It's fairly unusual that you would get equity in these roles. Okay, so let's talk about the work content. What do you actually do in these rotations? So the jobs are going to run the gamut across finance and accounting. And one of the core areas you'll definitely see is FP&A, financial planning analysis. There may be some accounting controllership. There could be a treasury role, audit. You'll often see different financial sales and marketing support. So these could be commercial finance analysts or FP&A people attached to the revenue side of the business. And also very common would be operational manufacturing support. So this could range from cost accounting, but it could also be operational finance where you're supporting a plant or a shop with operational KPIs and things like that. So you're going to rotate through these different jobs, and the idea is it gives you a wide range of experience. You get to learn a core skill set of what someday a CFO or someone like that might need to have. And sometimes there's actually a travel component to these where you'll travel to different business units within the company. Okay, development. Now this depends on the company that you work at. And one piece of that is often financial training. Now this could be honing just financial fundamentals in accounting, reestablishing knowledge on the things that you might have learned in university or college, things like NPV and IRR and exchange rates and maybe some accounting basics. But expect that there could be some element of financial training. They will also try to help you with your soft skills, so things like communication and influencing, leadership. Companies want these FLDPs to develop quickly into managers. So they're going to try to help give you different guidance on leadership and how you can move into those roles in your career quickly. Exposure and mentoring. So you get a lot of good exposure in FLDP programs. You'll often be assigned a more senior level mentor, and you'll get access, whether it's through roundtables or having lunch with very high members of the organization, including the CFO or other top ranking executives within the organization. The experience in the environment. So what is it like working? And these mostly sound pretty positive, but some entry-level jobs, you come in and you're the only young person. But in this world, it's a great transition from college because you go into this group of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe all the way up to 50 different FLDPs who are all about the same age. They're all going through the same type of jobs and training. And it gives you this great group of people to meet and become friends with. So what is the work like? This can vary. I would say on average an FLDP is going to work somewhere in the 50-hour-a-week range. But that again can vary based on what job you have within the rotation. You might work an FP&A job where you have closing responsibilities or reporting that require some late nights. But on average, it's decent work-life balance, especially when you compare it to something like investment banking or private equity. But again, different people will put in different levels of effort. The one thing I will say is for the programs that have courses that you actually have to take during your rotations, you'll still be expected to do your day job, but you'll have to do some studying and preparation in your personal time or after hours. The expectations are relatively high. They want people who are going to be driven in their career and are driven to do a good job. And sometimes these programs, if you're not holding your own, you can actually get bumped out of the program. So a lot of people ask, what do you do after 2 or 3 years when the program ends? And the answer is you are usually going to land in a job, an analyst job, maybe even a senior analyst job afterwards within the company. And oftentimes, because these FLDP programs are highly regarded, sometimes you might get to choose your job. You might get to pick from a few different roles. And through the program, you start to learn about what it is you like to do. People often want to know, what are the top FLDP programs? The ones that rise to the top in terms of demand are the FANG companies. And among that, Amazon is usually one that is right at the top. It has close to 6-figure compensation, and people just want to get into these. Now, the one thing I would tell you is while they pay more, they're often in high cost of living areas, so you do want to factor that in when you're looking at that compensation. I am actually a bigger fan of some of the more traditional programs. And the reason is that these programs have been around for a long time. They've really thought about and developed their coursework that goes along with the rotational assignments. And there's a good pedigree. So as people see that on your resume, they'll know that you were trained. And think about companies like Boeing, Ford, Johnson & Johnson, GE. These are really good companies that have been around for a long time and produce really good leaders in business. But like we said, there's probably more than 100 of these. You can see them all across the country. There's a link in the video description that has a list of many of the different programs. So not all of them, but there's probably at least 50 on there. So check that out. So pros and cons. If you're thinking about going after an FLDP program, you're comparing it to other things, here's just a quick list. And we've talked about most of these. But pros, leadership track. Clearly, companies are investing in these programs. It gets you on a fast track to continued promotion. It's a quicker path to go from analyst to senior analyst to finance manager, director, and beyond. The focus is on development. So they're really trying to teach you. They're trying to give you the experience that gets you into those leadership jobs quickly. They're going to try to develop you. And that's something that can be hard to do on your own if you're not in one of these programs. Compensation, it's a pro. These are well-compensated roles, and often they have good raise structures where every 6, 9, 12 months you're getting an additional raise based on your performance, and that's probably a lot faster than your average entry-level employee. The work content's also great. It gives you a good finance skill set. It's going to expose you to different areas of corporate finance and put you on the right path in your career. And it's a nice environment. As we talked about, you transition with a group of other graduates. You've got some built-in friend network and support system. You're not going to be the only young person in the office or anything like that. And there's a lot of companies that provide these across all industries. So if you're interested in the software industry, entertainment, technology, manufacturing, there's companies that offer. On the con side, it's less stable. You may actually have to move. You definitely have to move roles. You may even have to move cities. For some people, that's a pro, but some people like a little more stability, so it's a con. Compensation is on the con list only as you compare it to investment banking, private equity, or consulting. It's a well-paid job, but when you compare it to those, it does fall behind. It's typically only at large companies. Now, you might get an assignment at a smaller division of those companies, which gives you a little bit of that smaller business experience. But if you want to do these programs, you're probably going to work in a large company. You do get lumped in with the group a little bit. We mentioned that you could have as many as 20, 50, even 100 FLDPs in a company. You do get assigned into that group, and some people might just think of you as an entity. Now, that could be a good thing too, because these programs do have a good reputation. It can be a little bit of a letdown after graduation for some people, because you get so much attention and exposure when you're going through the program. And when you take a job that's just a normal job within the business, sometimes you feel like you lose a little bit of that, but you just have to keep in mind that the company put you through that program for a reason. They invested in you, and they still want you to continue to succeed. So that's it. FLDP is a great way to start your career. It's definitely worth checking out. It affords you better work-life balance than some of those investment bank and private equity roles, and the ceiling is still very high. It's a good pipeline to move your way in career towards being a CFO. So that's it. Please subscribe, like the video, and be sure to leave questions or comments.